So today, I'm going to talk about my Renaissance Festival costume. Now, I have made a couple of videos about the Renaissance Festival in the past, but the first one of those was really just what I did there. I didn't really mention my costume at all, except maybe that I had one. In the second one, however, I did actually go through and talk about my sword, because I'd just gotten it, and I was really excited about it then. But I only showed you a picture of my costume. I didn't really talk about each of the different parts, so that's what I'm going to go do today. I'm going to go through my costume and show you each of the different components and kind of what they are for. Alright, now before I actually show you my costume, I'd like to go through the background of my character, because it'll help me explain things. And yes, I am to that level of nerdy where going to and dressing up for the Renaissance Festival just isn't enough. But nevertheless, my character started out in an empire, and it was oppressive and abusive, as empires are. So, when he turned 18, he snuck out of there and went to live off on his own. And the way he would survive is he would steal from different hunting camps or empirical scouting camps. He would sneak up, steal the food, run away, and then eat it. And that's how he would survive. Well, one day, he came across this camp and he was stealing from it. And the person who was left there to guard the camp noticed him and knocked him out and then took him to his base of operations. Well, what my character had done is he had stumbled across a guild of assassins scouting camp. And what this guild would do is they would rebel against the Empire by taking down imperial outposts and imperial caravans to just generally weaken the Empire. Now, the leaders of this guild pretty quickly noticed that my character was a member of the Empire, as I could tell by his clothing. But they also recognized that he wasn't a soldier or even a scout. So they figured that he was just running away from the Empire, which they had no issues with. Now, they were impressed that he was able to almost steal from them, considering they were a guild of assassins. So, they offered him the chance for them to train him to be an assassin. And my character accepted this, partly because he wanted to rebel against the Empire, and partly because he was afraid that if he didn't accept the offer, the assassins would kill him. Now, a while later, after my character had received the training, the Empire found out about this base of operations. And this base of operations wasn't located within the Empire or anything. It was actually located in a village, hidden in a forest to the west of the Empire. Now, since the Empire had now found out about this Guild of Assassins location, they then sent some troops to go over off and attack it, as a surprise attack. Now, the Assassins are pretty good at sneaking up at people and killing them without them knowing, essentially surprising them and managing to defeat them. They're good at that. They're not that great at doing stand-up, hand-to-hand combat type thing. They're not that great at just stand-up melee dueling type thing. And when the Empire got the surprised them, they really had no chance. The Empire managed to wipe out most of the assassins, and only a few of the assassins managed to escape, my character included. So now, my character just roams around, looking for quests to do to earn a living, and essentially rebels against the Empire whenever he can. And now I can show you my costume. Alright, so here we have the first level of my costume, which is just clothes. There's nothing really special about it. I mean, I've got my shirt, my pants, and then my boots, which you may recognize from a couple of my other costumes. But aside from the fact that they're all black, there's nothing really special about it. I mean, these are just clothes that really any civilian could get. Now, with that being said, these were still provided by the Guild of Assassins, because they needed me to wear black to conceal myself. So, even though these are just normal civilian clothing, it was still provided by the Guild of Assassins with the intent that I would use it to conceal myself when doing assassiny things. Now, the next part of my costume is this tabard. And this is also given out by the Guild of Assassins, but this is only given to those who have successfully completed their assassin's training, essentially to signify that they are an assassin. And on it is the symbol of the Guild of Assassins, which is a tree because their base of operations was hidden in a forest. Now, you probably noticed that due to all the white, it's not exactly stealthy. And that's because it was never intended to be worn in the field. This was something that the assassins would only wear in the village, where everybody already knows they're an assassin, and they don't really need to be stealthy. It's essentially the dress wear of the Guild of Assassins. Now, when the guild was destroyed by the Empire, my character now wears the tabard all the time, to honor the Guild of Assassins. Now, this does make him more noticeable when he's sneaking around, but he doesn't care about that. And the reason he's not arrested whenever he walks into a village is no one knows what it means. I mean, the Guild of Assassins was kept very secretive. Even the raid on the guild by the Empire, no one really knew about it. So, whenever my character walks into a village and he's wearing this, which will be whenever he walks into a village, no one knows what it means, so they just don't care about it. Now, the assassins did want some way to identify each other, and since they don't wear the tabard outside of the village, that's where the ring comes in, which is the next part of my costume. So that way, if an assassin is ever outside of the village, and he meets up with another assassin, or just some potential ally, and they're wearing this ring, they know that that person can be trusted, that they're a friend. Alright, so the next part of my costume is the gloves. And I just have one here, but I do have two of them, one for each hand. Now, the Assassin's Guild mandates that I wear gloves because they request that I cover up all parts of my body because any exposed skin could give me away while I'm sneaking around. Now, these gloves, however, are not from the Assassin's Guild. The Assassin's Guild does have black gloves, which they could have given me, but these are actually gloves that I brought with me when I left the Empire. And the Assassin's Guild decided that these were dark enough gloves, so they let me just use these instead of giving me some of their own. But nevertheless, these are still gloves that I'll wear to cover up my skin. Now, the next part of my costume are the bracers. And again, like the glove, while there is just one here, I do have two, one for each wrist. Now, although the bracers are technically armor, my character doesn't use them as armor. Because if you think about it, since I'm an assassin, if I do my job correctly, I'm never going to be seen, much less attacked. So instead what my character uses the braces for is to cover up the seam between my glove and my shirt. And you'll also notice on here I've got my ring, so that is where my ring will be placed. And I do this because it annoys me that my shirt slides around. Now, my shirt sliding around doesn't provide a tactical disadvantage, like there's certainly no advantage to getting these, so the Guild of Assassins did not provide these. These are something I had to get on my own, because the Guild of Assassins, since they provided no advantage, just saw them as worthless. But nevertheless, it annoyed my character that my shirt was sliding around, so he decided that he wanted to fix it. And on one of his earlier raids, he noticed these bracers, and he figured that those could work. So he then took them, and has since used them. Alright, so I've got two belts. A black and shorter belt, and a green and longer belt. I'm going to start with the green belt first. Now, before I get into the belt, I should mention that one of the colors of the Empire is green. So, as you might be able to guess, my character got this belt from the Empire. This is a belt that he had when he left the Empire, and he used that to just, carry his stuff, as you would do with a belt. Now, the black belt, then, my character got when he joined the Guild of Assassins. And they gave him a new belt, partly because green isn't as stealthy as black, and partly because since green is the color of the Empire, they didn't necessarily want him wearing a green belt, because that would be almost like he was showing support for the Empire, which is not good for a group that rebels against said Empire. So, that is why he has the black belt. Now, the black belt is attached normally against my waist, and the green belt is attached from my right shoulder to my left hip. Now, he now uses the green belt again, because he needed more belt space to carry all of his stuff, and he doesn't really care about being stealthy based on the fact that of all the white on his tabard. So he just really needed another belt, which is why he's using the green one again, instead of having to go find one. Now, aside from my sword, I have 3 things on my belt, and I'm going to go through each of them, starting from my right hip, going to my left hip. So, starting from the right, we have the pouch. And this is essentially the equivalent to our wallets. It's really just used to hold currency. Now, you'll notice on here that there is green. And there is green on it because it is a pouch made by the Empire. In fact, this symbol on it is the symbol of the Empire. Now, due to this, my character, of course, got this when he was a member of the Empire. He used that when he was still within the Empire to carry around his money. And when he left the Empire, he brought the pouch with him because he figured it could be useful to carry small, but nevertheless useful items. Now, when he joined the Guild of Assassins, he really had no need for a pouch, because anything that he would have to pay for, the Guild provided, and the only time he really left the Guild of Assassins was to raid the Empire, so he really had no need to carry money with him. Now, when the Guild was being attacked, and would be subsequently destroyed, my character realized that he would need to carry all of his stuff with him. He couldn't just keep it at his house anymore, because he wouldn't have a house. So, he went ahead and used the pouch again. Now, even though both the pouch and that belt have green on them, and thus signify they're part of the Empire, he doesn't use them to, honor the Empire or anything. He more uses them out of necessity, because when the guild was destroyed, he needed to carry everything with him, and he thus needed a pouch and an extra belt. So, he's not using them to honor the Empire, he's using them because he needs them and he can't find anything else that'll work. Now, the next thing along his waist, on the black belt, is the face mask. And this is something that was also provided by the Guild of Assassins. Because, since the Guild of Assassins mandates that you cover up all parts of your body, they need to give you something to cover up your face, so they gave my character, and all the other assassins, a face mask. And so when he's not using his face masks, he just kind of drapes it over his belt. But of course, when he is using it, he'll put it on, and that'll cover up the rest of his skin. Now, to the left of the face mask, we have this. Now, this does look like a wand, but in the world my character is in, there is no magic. Magic doesn't exist. There's no mages or wizards or sorcerers. Magic just does not exist. So, this isn't actually a wand. What it is it's a gem that is fancily mounted. Now, my character procured the gem back when he was over off on his own after he left the Empire. This was back when he was stealing from different campsites, and one of the campsites that he was stealing from, he noticed this gem, and he thought it looked cool, so he went ahead and took it and kept it for himself. Now, my character then kept this with him while he was in the Guild of Assassins, and after it was destroyed, he decided to go to a nearby village, get the blacksmith, and he had the blacksmith make this fancy mount for the gem. And he then attaches it all to his belt via this. Now, he keeps it with him to essentially remind him of how he is once again wandering off by himself, and why he doesn't like the Empire, essentially. Now, the item that is on my green belt is this dagger. And this is actually the weapon that my character learned how to fight on. This is what he used to figure out how to kill people. This is what the Assassin's Guild used to train him. Now, after he graduated, and, became an assassin, the Assassin's Guild let him keep the dagger, so that way if he was ever in a tight situation where maybe he lost his main sword, he would be able to pull this out, and he could still fight. Now, the way the holster is attached to the green belt is like this. It is essentially tied on with a boot string, and my character got the string from some unintended boots that he then just, stole the laces from. Now, the reason he has it tied on like that, because that's pretty much right across his chest, is partly because he wanted to make room at his right hip for another sword, similar in length to the short sword, and he wanted room for that because the reason that the Guild of Assassins fell was because they couldn't duel, really. So he wanted to get another sword, so he could essentially dual-wield that sword and his current sword, and essentially learn how to fight in hand-to-hand combat, because that was the reason that his guild fell. Now, the other reason that he has it strapped to his chest like this is because he just doesn't really care anymore. He essentially wants to let people know that he is not to be messed with. So, it's essentially an intimidation factor. And quite frankly, having a dagger strapped in the middle of your chest would work quite effectively at that. Now, the last thing on my belts is my sword, which is actually called a wakizashi, if you are curious for the name of it. Now, the way it's attached to my belt is it's actually attached to both of my belts. This is actually at my left hip. You know, the belts go through here. And it's actually at the point where both the green and the black belts meet. So, both belts support the weight of this, and I just think it's really cool. Now, the sword is actually the last item I'm going to show you that was provided by the Guild of Assassins. And after my character learned how to fight, they then gave him this sword to essentially practice more advanced techniques on. And of course, once he graduated, they let him keep it, and so this is now his primary weapon. Alright, so all the stuff I've mentioned so far is what I would wear when I'm in combat. So if I'm ever going to go fight someone or assassinate someone, this is what I'd wear. Of course, if I were actually in combat, I would, put my face mask on, like this, and I'd probably also, have my sword out. So, this is what I do if I'm ever in combat. Now, there are 3 other items that my character will wear when he's not in combat. The first of these is the wineskin. And this is actually a legitimate water bottle. You can actually put water in here and drink from it. And it is very useful, because this way, whenever I'm thirsty at the Renaissance Festival, I can just take a drink from this, instead of having to go out and look for a water bottle. And additionally, since it's got the strap, I don't have to hold on to the water bottle. It's very convenient. And likewise, that's why my character has it. My character actually got this just before he left the Empire. Like, he bought it, filled it with water, and then left the Empire. Because he recognized that since he wouldn't really be around any civilization, that fresh water would be very hard to come by. So whenever he came by fresh water, he would fill his wineskin, and that way he would have a supply of fresh water with him. Now, after the guild was destroyed, and he would once again be on his own, he remembered how useful the wineskin was the first time, so he of course brought it with him the second time. Now we have my cloak, and this is actually the latest thing that my character, not me, but my character obtained. And he essentially got this partly to conceal himself, so if he was ever going in some place where he doesn't want to make it so obvious as to how deadly he is, he would wear this to conceal his stuff. And also, whenever he went into colder climates, he could wear this to keep himself warm. And now we have my last item, which is this staff. And this is something that my character obtained when after he left the Empire and he was just over off by himself. He found this stick and he said he just used it as a walking stick. And when he was stealing from those camps, he came across this cloth belt, which he then tied to the staff so that he could kind of slip it over his shoulder and he wouldn't have to always carry it. But yeah, so that is my Renaissance Festival costume. Now, it's always changing. I'm going to continuously add new things to it, because as you might notice, the difference between my current costume and last year's is that this belt, and of course the dagger, were not on my chest. In fact, I didn't even have this belt. This is something I gained this year. And so in future years, I'm probably going to get a sword, which I'll put on my side, and there will probably be other things that I don't even know I want yet that I'll probably obtain. But, nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed it, and see ya.